What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the Beyond the Game podcast. I'm your host, Cam Ryan, alongside my partners, Owen Reynolds and Noah Petros. Today, we've got Detroit sports coverage, Detroit CC sports coverage, and much more. So let's dive into it right here on the Beyond the Game podcast. Catholic Central defeated Clarkson North from Canada on Friday, 41-28. The Rocks are in the Elm again this week to host a conference rival in Orchard Lake St. Mary's, who came up with a dominating victory over De La Salle 49-10. Both me and Owen were on the call last Friday. Owen, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so if I were to tell you that Duke Banna went 12 for 18 and 247 and 3 touchdowns, you'd say, dang, that's a good game from Duke Banna. And he did that just in the first half.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he looked very strong. The Gash brothers each had 2 touchdowns in the first half. And the biggest point, in my opinion, was the Shamrocks scored 21 points in 3 minutes and 9 seconds in that second quarter. And it was looking like a very tight ball game. And then the Shamrocks, it seems like they always just find a way to pull away somehow. And another big point, I would think the running game for DCC could have been better for sure. And that young O-line kind of got eaten up a little bit. But Clarkson's D-line was also very big, very strong, and they were applying pressure basically the whole game. I think this game against Mary's is going to be the biggest game of the year for the Rocks so far, certainly, and maybe even for the whole season. If they win this one, it shows that they are a powerhouse again and they can make a run in the playoffs. And like you said, Cam, Mary's had a statement win last week versus De La Salle, and De La Salle was ranked 8th in the state at the time, so very important win. Shamrocks will have to make a statement win. I think even though Mary's with that big win, I'm going to be taking the Rocks, 31-24, high-scoring battle, and I can't be more excited for Friday, personally.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's absolutely going to be a very offensive game. Noah, what do you think?
I surely think that this game is going to be like a big test for both teams. The winner of this game is going to probably go undefeated for the remainder of the season. And when these two teams squared off last year, they played an incredibly close game that the Shamrocks won by a score of 27-22. And they only scored that final touchdown by scoring with about 3 minutes left last year. I think this team's going to be competitive again, and I think the Shamrocks are going to end up winning 31-30. But if the Shamrocks want any shot to win, they have to play 4 quarters of football. All year they've only played about 2 or 3 quarters. Whereas that Clarkson game looked like dominant at halftime. Clarkson pulled back a little bit in the third quarter before the Shamrocks pulled it off. The Shamrocks cannot do that again. They need to play 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, definitely. They also are going to have to contain Javen Gonzalez. He had 5 total touchdowns for St. Mary's. He had 3 in the air and 2 on the ground. And so far this season, he has 800 total yards and 10 touchdowns. That's through the air.
Yeah.
And then their edge rusher, Ryan Harrington, he's had 7 sacks and 3 tackles for loss and a forced fumble this season. So, Owen, like you said, the running game was not amazing last Friday for CC. We saw a little bit of just some inexperience difficulties with the offensive line. They're definitely going to have to do something to stop Ryan Harrington. And then as far as CC goes, they made it pretty obvious last week that nobody's really keeping up with the Gash brothers or anybody in their skill position. As long as the O-line can give Duke Banna just a little bit of time, just so he could get the ball out fast, I think that they're going to beat St. Mary's no problem.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like this game is just going to be which defense can get more stops, honestly, because both these offenses are just super high-powered, like Cam said. The skill positions for both teams are very strong, and it'll be interesting to see which defenses can step it up and get their team the W.
Yeah, I think the winner of this game is going to be the team that forces turnovers. You have to try to steal possession from the offense, and anytime you steal possession and you got better field and you stop the opposing team from scoring, which there's going to be a lot of on Friday. So the team that forces turnovers is going to be the team that wins.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, boys. Up next, the Lions get back on track with a must-needed victory over Chicago. Jared Goff, 23 for 28, 334 yards and 5 touchdowns against his former offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson. The Honolulu Blue has quite the test next Monday as they travel to Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens on primetime television. Noah, what do the Lions need to do to contain the Ravens' unstoppable rushing attack and come out of Baltimore with a W?
I think the Lions, in order to stop the running attack, just need to not give up time. Baltimore is a team that can run around, and Lamar Jackson is a quarterback who runs around when receivers aren't open. And unless the Lions can pressure and rush the Ravens' own line, Lamar will be able to rush easily. The Lions need to apply pressure and not worry about the secondary. Don't worry about if the Ravens end up getting 2 free yards through the air. Just worry about containing the run, because that's Baltimore's biggest strength. If Detroit doesn't apply that pressure, then they can't run, and if Detroit does apply that pressure, then Baltimore will not be able to run, and they'll force Lamar to make uncomfortable throws, and maybe he'll just end up taking the sack or just throwing it away to save time. But Detroit needs to be able to get stops and just apply pressure. Don't worry about the passing game in the secondary as much as the running game.
Yeah, so versus Green Bay, the Lions looked rough, scoring only 13. And then, like Cam said, obviously they score 52 the very next week on the Bears. And I was at the game, and you could tell how high-powered this Lions offense still is. And that could tell you something about how good Green Bay's new defense is with Micah Parsons this season, as they beat the Lions and then the Commanders back-to-back weeks. Like Noah said, next week, Lions will have to keep the offense up, but like Noah said, the most important thing will be containing Lamar Jackson. Last year, the Lions struggled against the rushing QBs a little bit. Josh Allen had 68 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground against the Lions last year, and they gave up 45 to Kyler Murray and even 34 and a touchdown to Baker. So I think the Lions are obviously going to have to put somewhat of a QB spy on Lamar and just contain him. And Kelvin Shepard, defensive coordinator, should be focusing on, like I said, containing Lamar, containing the big plays from Lamar as well that he can create. I feel like, honestly, the Lions also should start to bring more pressure, because last week, watching the game in person, I think the Lions only had like 2 sacks maybe the entire game and not a lot of blitzes. They were kind of just sitting back, and if you do that against Lamar, he's just going to run all over you or just pass it too. And I'm going to be taking the Ravens in this one, sadly. 31-27, very close game on the road in Baltimore. I don't think the Lions can get it done, but they certainly will keep it a close game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you brought up the Packers, because after they played the Lions, I was very concerned with the Lions. I was very concerned with the O-line. I was concerned with Goff, because though he completed a lot of passes, he didn't really score very much. But then I saw the Packers play the Commanders, and it made me feel so much better about the Lions game, because, folks, I think the Packers are just legit. I think that defense is probably the best defensive unit in all of football right now. So the Packers are just really, really good. I think that is the only takeaway you could have from that game. Because then when the Lions were at home against a team who's not that great, they went off. And the offensive line, any sort of thought that you had about this team or any sort of question that you had, everything was answered against the Bears on Sunday. Jared Goff, 23 for 18, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns, posted a QBR of 156 on the dot. Like, that is just such a difference between the game in Lambeau and the game at Ford Field. Tate Ratledge looked a lot better at guard. He's their new rookie out of Georgia. He looked phenomenal for the most part. it opened up the ground game definitely. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 12 attempts for 94 yards. Montgomery, he had 11 attempts for 57 yards. Both got in the end zone. So I think that, especially with this Lions team, what they did so good last year was be able to run the ball in the red zone and just like establish that run, and then the play action sets up St. Brown over the middle like we saw the entire game. So I think if they can beat Baltimore in the trenches, which will be hard because Baltimore has the dual threat read option with Lamar and Derrick Henry. If they can stop that, and then they can get the running game going themselves on offense, I kind of like the Lions in this one. But Owen, I am gonna have to take the Ravens. It's a big game, prime time in Baltimore. I just don't think Dan Campbell's got it in him.
Yeah. Like Cam said, Amon-Ra 115, 3 touchdowns. And of course, once the Lions start hitting the over the field stuff, they get J-Mo deep. He had 2 catches for 108 and a touchdown, which is insane. 54 yards a catch is crazy. But yeah, I think it's very tough for Detroit. But if they are to win this game, I think it is very fair to say that this team is most definitely Super Bowl contenders again if they can prove this. Noah, what do you think? What score you got?
I think Baltimore is gonna come out with this one easily, play 41-10. 2 years ago when Detroit played Baltimore, Detroit was 5-1 going into that game. They had all the hype. They had just beaten a Tampa team that looks really good, and then the second that they walked into Baltimore, that game was over. Jared Goff only threw for 284 yards, 1 interception, and even Jahmyr Gibbs only had 68 rushing yards, where Lamar Jackson then had 357 passing yards and just rushed all over us. And Detroit was still a good team that year, but it seems like anytime Detroit plays Baltimore, they always find a way to beat us. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that much of a blowout, though. I mean, Ravens defense just gave up 41 to the Bills. I mean, they do have Josh Allen, but besides him and James Cook, not many other weapons there. So
guys, it's just Josh Allen. If you watch the game, it's literally only him. But I want to read you guys off my fantasy team because I hope that this game is about 50-51 Lions because I've got Lamar, Henry, and Zay Flowers, but I've also got Gibbs and Laporta. So I hope it's the highest scoring game of the year because I definitely need this win.
Oh, yeah.
We'll continue our coverage of Detroit sports, but we'll switch gears a little bit as the Tigers play in a very important series this week against Cleveland. The Tribe is with 5.5 games now of the division title and have won 9 of their last 10. The Tigers certainly looking for revenge after last year's postseason where the Guardians knocked them out of the divisional series in 5. Noah, how important will it be for the Tigers to take 2 of 3 in this series, and how can they assure they don't choke away the division?
This series is going to probably determine which team wins the division, and if the Tigers can't even win 2 of 3, they hand this division's basically locked. The magic number right now is at 7, and with every win the series, it goes down by 2. So if the Tigers can win 2 games of the series, the magic number would then go down to 3. And then the Tigers play a struggling Atlanta team, which they should win at least 2 against there. And with every Cleveland loss, the magic number drops by 1. They have 12 games left this year. Then 3 of them, 11 games now. 2 of them against Cleveland, 3 against Atlanta, 3 against Cleveland, then 3 against the Boston team. And Detroit has swept Cleveland this year, and they have swept Boston this year. And Atlanta's not looking that good. So the Tigers don't have the hardest schedule in the league, but they just need to win. Of the 5 games remaining, you want to win at least 3 of them, so that the magic number goes down to 1. And any more win that you have, or any Cleveland loss that you have guarantees a division win.
Yeah, so the big point for this Tigers team is obviously Scooble's injury test came back as negative, and that's very big for the team. The main concern, I would say, not just for closing out the year, but after Scooble, Flattery is sometimes up and down, and Mize, the Tigers bullpen sort of seems to thin out a little bit. I mean, a little top heavy, but obviously I think it's enough to clinch the division, hopefully, for the team. Yeah, I think it's going to be up to these guys after Mize, Scooble, and Flattery to truly prove if the Tigers can make a run in this postseason. Obviously, last year they made the run pretty far until the Guardians stopped it in the AL division,
Yep.
I think. So Tigers as well they've averaged 5.13 runs in their last 15. So the bats are super hot right now. Another reason to point to the bullpen as being the main issue, obviously. And I think that they will win only 1 out of the 3 in the series. I think they win the Scooble game, and then they lose the Flattery game. And then I think after this, the Tigers will be 4.5 games from clinching the AL Central with 9 to play, which I see them doing that, winning winning 5 out of the last 9 and clinching the division.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't quite see the Tigers choking away the division. I think that offensively they are good enough. They're not going to do that. They're not going to fall off of the face of the earth right before the postseason. However, that being said, it is important that the bats get hot right before the postseason because, guys, if the Tigers are going to go far in this postseason, I mean, Tarek Skubal's going to have to pitch 3 times in a 7-game series. Like that, that's just what has to happen. And the Tigers cannot afford the bats to, go lackadaisical, as Owen says on the air sometimes. The lineup it's fine. They don't have that, superstar, I guess you could say. It's supposed to be Riley Green, but Riley Green has a strikeout problem, and his swing isn't really built for the postseason. So I think that could definitely be a factor. And I guess the 1, 2, 3, the 3 pitchers are Scooble, Flaherty, and Mize. Flaherty's hit or miss, and you really don't know what you're going to get from Mize. So in a 7-game series, Scooble's going to have to pitch 3 times. He's probably going to have to go 7 innings each time because, like you guys have mentioned, that bullpen is still a disaster. That is the only way I can put it. The bullpen is not very good. Vest got lit up last night, and that's what happened. That was the end of it. But I think that the offense can find a way to get them. I think it's probably going to be first to 4 runs in these games. First to 4 runs is probably going to close it out, though it is postseason baseball. I think if the Tigers are the first to put 4 runs on the board, that way they can hold it down.
Yeah, I truly think that the Tigers are a team that either everybody on the team plays good or nobody on the team plays good. I mean, Kerry Carpenter in only his 4th pitch of the game hit a home run to tie it in the 9th inning as a pinch hitter, and now he's starting today. He can truly let some balls fly against Cleveland, and as he did last year, hitting that home run in Game 2 to give the Tigers the win. And even though they lost that series, Carpenter's injury was a big factor in him not being able to run. And the Tigers were right there with Cleveland. And I think Kerry Carpenter has to be the lead guy, and he has to be the one that has to carry the team, and he has to lead the team to a victory if Stuble's not on the mound and the bullpen's not playing good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they also need to lean on their veterans, guys like Gleyber Torres. Hate to say it, but Javi Baez. Javi Baez needs to be good these last few games and in the postseason. He's had the most postseason. I believe he's had the most postseason experience out of anybody on the team. It might be Torres though. And yeah, the bats just have to be hot. That's the best way I can put it. Transitioning back to the football world, the Michigan Wolverines are in Nebraska this weekend to take on the Cornhuskers. The Wolverines suffered a loss to Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, as the boys were pretty spot on with their predictions. However, they got back on track in a thrilling victory over Central Michigan, 63-3. Owen, what were your takeaways from last week comparing them to the Oklahoma game, and how much of a difference is there when Sharon Moore is not behind the play calls?
Yeah, well, I want to start by saying it's hard to compare the two games when one team is obviously Oklahoma in the SEC and one is Central Michigan in the MAC division. But
Right.
that being said, the Wolverines' defense looks solid against a high-power Oklahoma offense led by Mateer. I feel like, honestly, we can't blame the loss much on the defense. Holding a top 15 team to 24 is kind of what you expect out of the defense. But I think the offense was just the letdown. But you can't put all the blame on Bryce Underwood. He was 9 for 24 with 142 and no touchdowns or interceptions, which is not a great stat line, but I'm sure he'll build from here as this was his first real test in college football. The run game was there for sure. Haynes had 125 yards and a touchdown, and he's been very good so far this season. And ultimately, I think this game is going to come down to play calling. And I don't know if this surprises anybody, but I don't really like what Sharon Moore has been doing really with the play calling so far this year. I feel like it's just a little too defensive with the play calling. It's just a lot of screen passes, a lot of like dink and dunk plays, I guess, sort of. Against Central, obviously they took more downfield shots, but it is Central Michigan and not Oklahoma. So I think the win versus Central obviously does give them some confidence coming into an important game versus Nebraska, primetime college football night game. I think without Sharon Moore's play calling, Michigan might even be better, honestly, in this game versus Nebraska. But we'll see, though. Obviously, I could be definitely wrong. I think Wolverines will have to just lean on Haynes, who has the hot hand right now, and lean also on one of the top defenses in the country for sure. I think Michigan should start sprinkling in more deep passes and more play action, some big shots down the field. Guys like Donovan McCulley, he had a big catch in that Oklahoma game over the defender's head. Samaj Morgan as well, the speedster, try to hit him deep. I think Michigan will get this game done, 24-13, defensive Big Ten battle, but Wolverines get a win, and Bryce Underwood gets his first true college football victory against a Big Ten school.
Definitely. Oh, and all you.
I think with Sharon Moore out, this opens up Bryce Underwood to use his legs. Against CMU last week, he ran for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns, including an incredible juke move in the second half. This Nebraska game is the first conference game of the season, and so that loss to Oklahoma stinks, but it wasn't a conference loss. Everybody's 0-0 right now in the Big Ten, except for UCL Northwestern, and with this Michigan just needs to win, and they can get themselves into the Big Ten championship and possibly get to the playoffs. If Michigan were to win this game, they would need to use Bryce Underwood's legs though. So against Oklahoma, he only ran about 2-3 times, and he could have really done something if he was able to run more. And against Central Michigan, he was able to use his legs and that ability. Nebraska is unranked, but they are also free now. I think the main reason they might be unranked is because their secondary has some problems, allowing over 300 yards against Cincinnati in that close game. But Nebraska surely would be ranked if they were to win, and if Michigan were to win, they would be around 18-16. Nebraska also has not been in Michigan in over 12 years, so they might be looking for that sort of revenge. And this is also a rematch of the 97 split championship, so there's that rivalry in those teams. In Nebraska, this is probably their best shot to beat Michigan since 2021 when it was that close game. In Michigan, they do not have the hardest schedule in the Big Ten, and they avoided teams this year like Oregon, Penn State, Illinois, and Indiana. In this game is probably their toughest that they have to play until Ohio State. And if they can And if they can get the run game going and Bryce Underwood can throw in a few passes here and there, we'll see where it can take them. I think Michigan will pull this one out, though, 24-21 versus Nebraska if Underwood can use his lads.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And like you said, during the Oklahoma game, I thought that the play calling was very conservative. Yeah, I mean, Bryce was 9 for 24 or whatever it was, but nobody's blaming him for that loss. It was not Bryce's fault at all. I don't even think it was Chip Lindsey's fault because those play calls are just so obvious that it's Jerome Moore behind them. And it's going to beg questions if Michigan underperforms this year, is if Jerome Moore is the guy for the job. But against Central Michigan, Chip Lindsey's the guy calling the plays the whole game. We saw a lot more of the spread offense. Also looks like Bryce Underwood has the green light to make plays and run outside of the pocket and for the first down and all that good stuff. I also think that this game against Nebraska could foreshadow what we're expected to see when Michigan goes into USC. Because USC is also 3-0. They're ranked 25th, if I'm not mistaken. And that is just about as a hostile environment as Oklahoma is. So for Bryce, if he can go into Nebraska and pull out a win, using his legs, making plays, and he's, the star of the show, then we can talk about, okay, maybe Michigan's a contender this year, because I think they can get into the playoff with 2, maybe even 3 losses. If their 2 and 3 losses are to Oklahoma, who looks like they're going to be a playoff team. They look really good. And Ohio State, obviously. Say they lose those 2 games, and you're looking at all these 2-loss teams, I think Michigan could very well get in, especially with their athletic director on the committee.
Yeah, you just got to hope they don't get banged by the committee putting in a bunch of SEC teams because obviously they favorite them a little bit. But, yeah, like Cam said, the play calling can't be blamed on Lindsey. And last week for Central Michigan, they spread it out. They should continue that against Nebraska. Like Noah said, Nebraska's secondary giving up 300 yards against Cincinnati. I'm just excited to see what Bryce can do with the opportunity against a pretty weak secondary, and now the green light from Lindsey. We'll see.
Truly, and I also believe that Michigan should also use Justice Hayes more. Or at the start of that second half against Oklahoma, he had a big 75-yard touchdown run, which really put Michigan back into the game. And if Michigan wants any shot to win, Dominic Zavada has to make his field goals. The past 2 weeks, he's missed field goals. One against Oklahoma at about 34 yards, and then against Central Michigan at 50 yards. Yes, both of those field goals didn't really matter in the outcome, but eventually, if you keep missing your field goals, it's going to affect the outcome.
Yeah, definitely. You could ask Tennessee all about missing field goals as they choked that one there against Georgia. Thank you for watching the second episode of the Detroit Catholic Central Sports Podcast, Beyond the Game. It's been an honor to sit in front of this microphone today, and we'll catch you guys in 2 weeks breaking down all sports coverage.